Why were three gods from different cultures born on December 25th? What if I told you that Jesus' story isn't unique? That long before Christianity existed, other deities were already worshipped with nearly identical narratives. Apollo in Greece, Horus in Egypt, and Jesus in Jerusalem. Three names, three eras, three completely distinct cultures, but one story, just one, and that's no coincidence. Apollo, the Greek god of light, healing, and prophecy, was Zeus's son and born from a virgin named Leto. He brought light to the world, just as Jesus was described as the light of the world. Horus, the Egyptian sky god, was born to the goddess Isis, who conceived miraculously after Osiris's death. And Jesus, of course, was born to Mary, a virgin, through divine intervention. Three virgin births, three sons of supreme deities, three beings destined to save, illuminate, and guide humanity. But it doesn't stop there. Apollo was called the shepherd of stars and protector of flocks. Horus was the celestial shepherd, guiding souls. Jesus, the good shepherd. Apollo was the mediator between gods and humans. Horus was the intermediary between the living and the dead. Jesus, the only mediator between God and humanity. Coincidence? Or a narrative structure that's been repeating for millennia? Think about this for a moment. If three distant cultures, with no direct contact, created such similar stories, what does that reveal about human spirituality? Were these narratives borrowed from each other? Or do they all point to a universal truth that transcends religions and mythologies? Now comes the part few openly discuss, but it's recorded in ancient texts and historical studies: the birth date. Apollo was celebrated during the winter solstice, when the sun is reborn after the shortest days of the year. Horus was also celebrated during this time, symbolizing light's victory over darkness. And Jesus, December 25th. But here's the detail. No biblical record confirms Jesus was born on that date. It was the Catholic Church, centuries later, that chose this date to align with pagan celebrations of the unconquered sun. Why do this? Because it was easier to convert pagan peoples if their festivals and symbols were incorporated into Christianity. Apollo's and Horus's births had been celebrated for centuries, so by placing Jesus on the same date, the new religion gained strength, familiarity, and acceptance. I'm not saying this invalidates Christian faith. I'm showing that religions intertwine, influence each other, and share powerful archetypes that resonate in humanity's collective unconscious. Now do this. Close your eyes for a few seconds and imagine these three figures side by side. Apollo with his golden lyre, Horus with his falcon wings, and Jesus in his white robe. Three eras, three cultures, but one same essence: light, salvation, and rebirth. Feel that connection. It's there, waiting for you to recognize it. If this is shaking your certainties, drop an "awakened" in the comments. And if you believe these stories are no accident, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of self-discovery and spiritual evolution. How did resurrection become the greatest mystery shared across mythologies? What if resurrection wasn't exclusive to Christianity? What if it already existed thousands of years earlier, in Egyptian and Greek temples, being lived, celebrated, and taught as the greatest of sacred mysteries? Because here's the truth. Apollo, Horus, and Jesus share not only miraculous birth, but also the symbolism of death and rebirth. Horus was dismembered by Set, the god of chaos, and resurrected by Isis through sacred magic. Apollo, though immortal, went through cycles of symbolic death and renewal, especially during the Delphic rituals, where he descended to the underworld and returned bringing prophetic knowledge. Jesus died on the cross and rose on the third day. Three narratives, one same pattern. Death is not the end, but a passage to something greater. This archetype is deeply rooted in the human psyche. Carl Jung would call this the solar hero, one who descends into darkness and returns transformed, bringing light and salvation. In ancient mythologies, this wasn't seen as literal history, but as spiritual symbolism. Resurrection represented consciousness's victory over ignorance, light over darkness, eternal life over physical death. But why do so many religions use this same structure? Because it works. It touches the human heart in a way few symbols can. The idea that we can die to our old life and be reborn into something new, something divine, irresistible. It's transformative. And that's exactly why Christianity adopted this narrative so powerfully. Now, here's something that'll make you reflect even more. Resurrection rituals in ancient Egypt were celebrated during the spring equinox, a time of nature's renewal. Apollo was honored in spring with festivals celebrating light's return, and Christian Easter, also in spring. This isn't a random choice. It's the continuation of a spiritual tradition spanning millennia. Early Christians knew this. Many of them came from pagan backgrounds and recognized the parallels. But instead of rejecting these similarities, they embraced them, showing that Christ's message was universal, eternal, and already present in ancient wisdom. The Apostle Paul even quoted Greek poets in his sermons, showing he understood this deep connection between spiritual traditions. So what does this mean for you? It means spirituality isn't confined to a single religion. It's bigger. It crosses cultures, eras, and symbols. And when you start seeing these patterns, your understanding of the sacred expands in ways no isolated doctrine can offer. Do this now. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and imagine yourself going through a symbolic death. Let go of everything that limits you, everything that keeps you tied to the past. And now, be reborn. Feel that energy of renewal flowing through you. That's the power of the resurrection archetype. It's not just an ancient story. It's a tool for personal transformation that's available to you right now. If you're feeling this deep connection, comment "reborn" down below. Like this video if you want to keep exploring these sacred mysteries. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because we still have so much more to reveal. Why did the 12 disciples appear in almost every solar mythology? What if Jesus' 12 apostles weren't a random choice, but an astronomical symbol used for millennia? Because when you look at Apollo, Horus, and Jesus, the number 12 appears prominently in all three narratives. And this is no accident. It's sacred astronomy disguised as religion. Horus had 12 followers who accompanied him on his journey through the sky. In fact, these 12 represented the 12 zodiac constellations, marking the sun's passage through the year. Apollo, as a solar god, was also associated with Hercules' 12 labors, the 12 Olympian gods, and the 12 months of the solar cycle. And Jesus, 12 apostles. But here's what few connect. Jesus is constantly described as the Son of Righteousness and the Light of the World. He is the sun. And his 12 disciples represent the 12 zodiacal houses through which the sun travels. This doesn't diminish Christianity's spiritual message. Actually, it amplifies it, because it shows that ancient sages used astronomy as symbolic language to transmit deep spiritual truths. The sun has always been seen as a symbol of the divine, of life, of light that dispels darkness. And the 12 zodiac signs were the cosmic journey this light traveled, influencing seasons, harvests, and human survival itself. In the Gospels, there are fascinating passages when you read through this lens. Jesus walks on water. The sun reflects on the sea at dawn. Jesus turns water into wine. Sunlight transforms grape water into wine through ripening. Jesus multiplies bread and fish. The sun is responsible for harvest abundance and nature's plenty. Coincidence or deliberate solar symbolism? Early church fathers recognized these parallels. Clement of Alexandria and Origen, for example, wrote about how Christian mysteries shared structure with pagan mysteries. But over time, these connections were being erased, hidden, transformed into heresy. Why? Because revealing that Christianity shared symbols with ancient religions could weaken its exclusive authority. But truth always finds a way. And the truth is that Apollo was celebrated in Delphi with solar rituals. Horus was worshipped in Egyptian temples as the rising sun. And Jesus, though presented as a historical figure, carries all the symbols of a solar deity, born at winter solstice when the sun begins to grow, dies at Easter when the sun reaches the equinox, and resurrects bringing spring's light. Now think about this practically. How many times have you heard about seeking the inner light? This concept doesn't come from a specific religion. It comes from this universal solar tradition that all cultures recognized. Light is knowledge. Light is awakening. Light is expanded consciousness. And you, right now, are connecting with this ancestral light that Apollo, Horus, and Jesus represent. Do this exercise. Look up at the sky, at the sun, and recognize that all religions point to the same source of life and energy. Feel gratitude for this light that sustains all existence. That's true spirituality, without dogmas, without separations, just connection with the universal, sacred. If you're beginning to see these deep connections, comment "enlightened" down below. Like this video so more people can awaken to these mysteries. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, because we still have powerful revelations ahead. What if all religions are telling the same story in different ways? What if the greatest spiritual truth isn't about choosing between Apollo, Horus, or Jesus, but about recognizing that they all point to the same light? Because when you look beyond the names, beyond the cultures, beyond the doctrines, what remains is a universal message. You are divine. You carry this light. You can be reborn. That's the truth the ancient mysteries always guarded. In Egypt, initiates learned that Horus wasn't just an external god, but a symbol of inner awakening. In Greece, Apollo's followers sought illumination through self-knowledge at the Temple of Delphi, where it was written, "Know thyself." And Jesus, he clearly said, "The kingdom of God is within you." 3 paths. One same direction, word. But why do these stories resemble each other so much? Because they weren't invented from nothing. They're the reflection of real spiritual experiences that human beings had throughout history. Shamans, priests, mystics, and prophets from different eras and places went through deep inner journeys, found divine light within themselves, and tried to translate this into narratives that could be understood by everyone. The virgin birth represents spiritual awakening that doesn't come from the material world, but from an internal divine source. Resurrection represents radical transformation of consciousness, when you die to the ego and are reborn as an illuminated being. The 12 disciples represent the stages, the cycles, the energies you must integrate on this journey. All of this is symbolic. All of this is profound. All of this is real on a level that transcends literal history. And here's what really matters. You don't need to abandon your faith to recognize these connections. Christians can honor Jesus. Pagans can honor Apollo. Egyptian scholars can honor Horus. Because all these paths, when lived with authenticity and genuine seeking, lead to the same destination: union with the divine, consciousness, expansion, spiritual evolution. The problem was never the diversity of religions. The problem has always been the dogma that insists on saying only my path is right. But spiritual truth is inclusive, not exclusive. It embraces all traditions because it recognizes that the divine manifests in infinite forms, speaking different languages to different peoples, but always transmitting the same essence: love, light, transformation, and eternity. So what do you do with this information? You expand, you study, you seek, you explore the sacred mysteries of all traditions with an open mind and receptive heart. You realize that spirituality isn't a competition, but a symphony where each religion plays its unique note, together creating cosmic harmony. Imagine now Apollo playing his lyre, Horus spreading his wings, and Jesus extending his hands. 3 gestures, one same blessing. The light is within you, always has been, always will be. And when you awaken to this, your life transforms completely. You stop being a passive follower and become an active seeker. You stop needing intermediaries and find the divine directly within yourself. That's the invitation Apollo, Horus, and Jesus make. Not to follow them blindly, but to awaken as they awaken, to shine as they shine, to be the light you were always meant to be. If this message touched your heart, comment "light" down below. Like this video so it reaches more people who need to hear this. Share it with someone who's seeking spiritual answers. And subscribe to the channel, because we're going to keep unveiling the sacred mysteries that transform lives and expand consciousness.